And welcome back to episode 113 of the Weekly Tech Round with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
It is 113? No, 114 is next week, isn't it? I was getting ahead of myself there, numbers.
You are.
I don't know what day of the week it is, let alone how many numbers.
It's been a busy week.
It has been a busy week. I think I'm coming down with something, the old colds and seasonal coughs and splutters,
The gift that keeps on giving from the kids.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I've been into the city this week, so I've been on trains. So yeah, mixing with the unwashed masses.
Riffraff.
Yes, indeed it is. Indeed it is. And this week is also Thanksgiving to our Thanksgiving holiday, I should say, to our friends over in North America. So to any of our friends, colleagues, acquaintances, listeners who celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday, we hope you're having a very lovely time and enjoying the time off, I guess, isn't it? The turkey, the pie, isn't it, and all the other trimmings that come along
and
with
the shopping.
Oh yes, how can we forget that it's Black Friday as we record this?
Have you purchased anything yet?
Yes, I have. Yes,
Was it for you or is it for someone else?
I purchased SpongeBob SquarePants: The Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated for the Xbox.
For the kids, yeah.
The kids wanted it for ages. It was 29 quid on Xbox, and I'm kind of reluctant when it's not on Game Pass. I'm like, whoa, I'm not buying that.
I'll have to pay for it.
And then, of course, we've got a Steam sale going on, haven't we, as well? So Steam sales hold a very special place in our hearts. And I've stopped really buying stuff on Steam sales for the last couple of years, really, because I'm just not getting any value out of it. And I know we were talking about this, weren't we, before, that with Game Pass, it's kind of killed the urgency of a Steam sale, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I don't need to spend all that money to build up a backlog for the year.
No, you're right. And so I was looking at Steam sales. There's quite a lot of stuff on there I'd like to buy, but then I'm like, when am I going to play it? And I kind of with the whole Game Pass piece, it's not a worry if I don't play it because I haven't paid for it. And I'm a bit like,
yeah, exactly. You paid pennies for it, basically, yeah.
Yeah, pennies in the pound, so to speak, Whereas, Game Pass, whereas Steam sale, there's loads of great games on there, really great games. I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, if you're fancying, ponying up 25, I don't know what it's dollars, but at least in the UK, there's 50% off Cyberpunk 2077. Now, when we bought that when it came out, I wouldn't buy that brand new if it was out today in the price that we paid for it. But at 25 quid, given all that they've had all the patches and that, I reckon it's worth a punt.
I think it will be, yeah.
This isn't scripted, so I'm sorry, Carl. The other parts, obviously, another game I really would recommend is a game called Ready or Not. So Ready or Not is a tactical first-person shooter that is around police SWAT units.
About that. I spotted that and thought about buying it. Have you bought it?
Yeah, I've had it for about a year.
Oh, okay. You bought it a while back then.
Yeah. So that is their 26 quid. Now I'm going to say to you, Carl, you need to buy it. It pretty much is the spiritual successor to the SWAT games. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah.
SWAT 4, SWAT 3, which started off as a top-down isometric tactical shooter, and then SWAT 3 and SWAT 4 turned them into first-person shooters. Really, really good games. It's not Battlefield shoot, run, kill, run away. This is, you have to think about what you're doing. You have to think about how you're going to interact with the people, whether they're the enemy or whether they're civilians. It is a really, really good game. It's still in early access, so it's not polished yet, but definitely worth some time.
I presume it has co-op.
It does have co-op. It has multiplayer. So yeah, it is worth it. So I'd say check it out. We'll talk later. I tell you what I nearly bought though. Actually, before I say that, is the old Bikini Bottom game was six quid on Steam. So that's where I was like, oh, I'll get it. And then of course I was like, well, that's not going to work, is it?
No, you need it on the Xbox for the kids.
So it was like £11. It was £11 for Xbox. So I could stump that up. I was quite happy to do that. What I nearly bought though, and because I'm nuts, is I nearly bought a Steam Deck. I kind of was umming and ahhing about it.
Did you really?
I hovered over it again. And after seeing, you and I now know somebody who's got one. After seeing it in the flesh and talking to people who are playing on it, I was like, oh, it does sound good. It does really sound like, something I get. But I can't justify it at the minute. There's no game that really I've got a feeling, I want to take out. That makes sense and play with.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it doesn't support Game Pass either. So you have all these PC games that we could play. I mean, until you could install Windows on it, couldn't you?
Well,
and
yeah,
then
you
put your
wouldn't.
Game Pass and play your games
No,
that way.
well, yes, and technically speaking, you could probably try and get away with cloud gaming.
You could do. Yep.
But yeah, I know where you're coming from on that point. Yeah, definitely. It is. It is. Yeah, it's very tempting, but I just can't. Yeah, there is a justification point for me at the minute with it, which is hard.
No. Maybe next year. Maybe Steam Deck too.
Maybe. Anyway, we are digressing already before we've even got out the bat. So this week we have a couple of follow-up stories from things we talked about last week around the tech industry and the layoffs. There's been a few changes there. Talk about Activision, the CMA. We'll also talk actually, yeah, a little bit of a random story, but it's been in the press recently about Theranos. I think that's the way to pronounce it. You know, the
Yeah,
former
Theranos. Yeah,
Theranos,
something like
perhaps. Yeah, I probably butchered that again. Well, there's been an update in that case as well. We're also going to talk about she who should not be named voice assistant from the people who sell books, and we're going to talk about super secret squirrel, the X-37B shuttle, which
that.
has just returned to Earth in the last couple of weeks after spending nearly 2.5 years in space. Absolutely
Impressive.
unbelievable. And the Tech Rant Rumor Mill is back as we talk iPhone 15. But first, let's talk about the tech industry and some of the layoffs and freezing that's going on at the moment. It is getting worse, I think, by the day as we hear more and more stories around layoffs.
It
Obviously, the
is.
Twitter layoffs is probably, I guess, Twitter's the one that everybody's talking about, isn't it, at the moment, because of
Yep.
the destructive way that Elon Musk is going about it. We've had Meta, of course, but it isn't just the big name players that are laying off people. Actually, there's a lot more going on here, isn't there? Actually, that as last day or so, there's been additional news that even
Yep.
HP themselves are now laying
Yeah.
people off.
They are. What they're saying? What, between 4,000 and 6,000 employees by the end of 2025. So this is a kind of a staggered approach to layoffs here. But yeah, 11% of the workforce they're looking to get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, so it's, I mean, and based on that's based on their earnings report, isn't it? That they're, as you said, they're
Yep.
going to be restructuring as opposed to the full layoff. But on the other hand, they had a full year fourth quarter result. They increased their dividends and talked about what they call a future ready transformation. So in one breath, they're saying that yeah, we've got some money there, we're paying out to shareholders, but if we don't restructure, i.e., get rid of
Yep.
people that cost us lots of money, there isn't going to be any more profit, isn't it? To a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
But and I think after that initial 2020 PC boom, wasn't it, as people and companies
All
scrambled to
that
get
remote
kit.
working, wasn't it? Yeah, SaaS solutions, hardware. A lot of hardware was sold at that point. But yeah, it's
The
coming
the
back down to
last
earth
year,
now, isn't it?
yeah, I was gonna say the last year has seen a complete slump in the PC and well, I'd say let's call it the PC segment, include MacBooks and even
Yeah.
Chromebooks as well in that slump. And Intel have lost a hell of a lot of money as well. They lost, I mean, $500 million, haven't they, in sales year on year. So I mean that Intel was reporting a 22% revenue decline to just over 15 billion for the second quarter of 2022, and
Mm,
their profits went negative. So that's 100. I think it was
wow.
109% decline in profit from Q2 in 21.
Ouch. That's got a sting.
That is, I mean, that's not the kind of thing they want to be reporting to the street, is it really?
No. All to their shareholders.
Well, no, ultimately, yeah. But I mean, yeah, we've talked about Amazon laying off thousands of
Yep.
workers as well over the thing, and that's mainly in the hardware teams. But we'll talk a bit about that
Was.
later.
Yep.
But again, there's we've got people like even like Roku, haven't we? Who make streaming equipment and media. They're
Mm.
laying off 200 employees in the US as well. It's just everybody's been hit, and I think
Apple's doing what, a hiring freeze, aren't they? So they're not employing anymore. Not layoffs, but they've stopped employing people.
yeah, and I think we've also read. I mean, there was Lyft as well. The transportation. Would you
Yep.
call it a transportation? I guess you would call it a transportation company, wouldn't you? Lyft in the
Kind of. Yeah.
US, Uber. Uber. They too have done. Now, I don't know if you saw it when we. I think The Verge on one of their things they had in their story sort of tracker. They had a tweet where which was a sorry, not a tweet. Excuse me, a infographic that showed all of the different companies that laid off staff over the last 6 months. And it had,
Wow.
showing the layoffs. And in November alone, there were 35,000 reported layoffs.
Wow. That's
But
November,
over
we're at 52,000.
I think it's TrueUp.io is keeping track, and they say 183,000 people have already been laid off by tech companies in 2022.
Wow, wowza. That's an unreal number.
It is a real number. I mean, I think what I think what we're seeing here is a fallout for, and I really don't like the phrase, but this what they call the macroeconomic environment, isn't it, at the moment? So we're seeing, fallout from the global increase in inflation, interest rates. We're seeing, recession in the UK at least. We obviously have the war in Ukraine, which has a worldwide knock, isn't it? To that.
Yeah.
China, I think, also highly affects the market because the COVID situation in China has had impact on manufacturing, but also I think there's still unsettling around the Taiwanese situation and potential invasion that could, I say could happen. I said it will happen at some point in the future,
Yeah.
I suspect. And of course, that has had the knock on, I said, with the chip manufacturers and pushing back. And we've seen, like, was it the Chips Act in the US and the equivalent in the EU as well. So this isn't the end of this. I think this is not going to be a
No.
2022. We're going to see a stop. This is going to rumble on into next year easily.
Yes, unfortunately.
But I mean, I personally know of another couple of tech companies that are not. How do I phrase this? They're not stopping hiring, but again, they are evaluating which roles they need to keep hiring versus a blanket let's hire everybody. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see here companies that are cash rich or at least buoyant are going to pull back the drawbridge, and you won't have layoffs, but what you'll have is effectively a freeze. I think on additional hiring. Yeah, because it's better to do that than to lay off people, and if they can afford to retain the staff they've got, you're in a better position. I think what we're
exactly.
seeing,
The staff they've got know the products, they know what they need to do, so it's better to keep them than lay them off.
and I think what we're seeing though is some of these other companies, especially the should we say the earlier ones, they don't have the cash reserves, I don't think. Now I know Amazon, Meta, and Twitter are slightly different. Well, Twitter definitely doesn't have cash reserves, does it? Because we know
no, it does not.
We know that they're in the red massively. Amazon though is interesting, but again, Amazon I imagine is a very fine. There's a very fine line between how much they cost to employ those staff versus the amount of money they burn on pushing products to market. And I think Meta probably, again, given the drop in their share price, is also wanting to pull back on the cash flow, isn't it, as well? But it is, it's not good. It's not good, and I certainly feel for many people who are in that situation right now. I feel very lucky that working for companies that are safe at the minute, but I don't think you should be complacent. That's probably the way to look at it, isn't it?
No, not at all.
But I don't know. Sorry, I felt that was a very serious piece there for us.
It was. It was. It's a tricky subject.
It is, but I think it's one that we can't really ignore. I think it would be amiss of us to ignore that as a tech company, as a tech podcast, given things that we report on and that we cover here. It's important that we, I think, address or are aware of that, because many people are going to be impacted by that, and a lot of the products and services that we talk about or perhaps champion are with these companies that are letting staff go, isn't it? Really, so
it is,
yeah. Anyway, sort of moving across, then let's talk about Activision, because
it's our favourite companies. So it's not just Activision, though, isn't it? So cast your mind back to what 2020 was it? And Epic filed a lawsuit against Apple and Google. You might have forgotten the Google part because it's all we've talked about is Epic Apple, but the Epic Google part is now kind of taking off a bit more, isn't it? And Epic have made some new claims that basically Google made anti-competitive agreements with other developers who are either considering developing a competing mobile app store or releasing their products standalone. Epic released Fortnite standalone, didn't they, out of the stores? And they're basically saying that Google paid these companies large sums of money not to build competitive stores or to launch outside of Google's Play Store.
It's just like I don't understand where Epic just I don't know. Where's the mentality here? At which point do you step back and go, right? We need to reevaluate how we're going to do this because it just
We're
seems
not
that
winning.
yeah, it just seems that they are hell bent, gung ho. That's the word, isn't it? On
Yes,
fighting this in court for what gain?
to the
I mean,
bitter
because
end.
because this whole thing now with that, with Google is like the whole Apple thing, as you say, they didn't get the outcome they wanted. Apple didn't
No,
effectively win, but in terms
they
of
did
a
not
judge,
win.
they didn't lose either. We know they're taking Apple back to court, but now they're challenging Google and Activision in the same breath to say that
Yes.
Google, you were taking backhanders.
Yeah. So what they've
Or,
alleged around
yeah,
Activision is that Google allegedly paid Activision $360 million over 3 years. Now, obviously, and this is because Activision were planning to build their own mobile app store. Now, Activision have something to say about that, and they basically
they
said,
do indeed.
Epic's allegations are nonsense. We can confirm that Google never asked us, pressured us, or made us agree not to compete with Google Play. And we've already submitted documents and testimony that prove this. I mean, they didn't
Yeah,
say that Google didn't pay them in that statement.
no.
No, but there was no pressure. Here, have some money. I don't know. I They're not the only ones that Epic are accusing, are they? Of
Oh
this,
god, no.
a large knot.
The list is very long.
No. The other big one they've said is Riot Games. They're the people that
Yeah.
make Leagues of Legends, and they were considering making League of Legends standalone like Fortnite, but made a separate 8-figure deal with Google in exchange for dropping its plans. But they've also named, was it Bandai Namco, Electronic Arts, NCSoft, NetEase, Nexon, Nintendo, Square Enix, Tencent, and Ubisoft, to just name a few small
Well,
players.
I mean, let's be honest. Who have they missed? Because that's quite pretty much most of the major players, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, they
just
didn't have any more details on those, but they've name dropped them to say they also have deals with Google not to distribute outside the Google Play Store.
I mean, let's be honest. At the moment, Activision have got a lot going on for them in it, and they don't really want to be
They
naming.
have. They don't need this crud.
But I mean, what they're according to Epic, they call it's being called Project Hug, isn't it? Which is the
That's
deal
the one. Yeah.
the deal Google have had with them. So
And I think
Google,
we talked about this when it first came out as well,
we
briefly.
did,
But it's
yeah.
just there's more of this information coming out now.
Because as you say that the Epic alluded to this back in 21 during the court case, but they didn't. There was no. I don't think, as you say, there wasn't depth information. There wasn't dollar values coming out.
No.
Google didn't deny it though, did they? They didn't deny that there was these
Nope.
programs, but it wasn't about closing down additional app stores. Now, not knowing, obviously, we haven't got somebody from Google here to give us a statement. But when you look at this, you think to yourself, okay, this probably did happen. I can't, it makes a lot of sense. Google are going to want to make strategic deals with
They
these
are.
game vendors because they want people to get to the Play Store. They're going to want to push advertising. They're going to want to do it. This is classic alliance work, isn't it?
And this is exactly what Epic do with the Epic Store. They buy
and
exclusivity for a year or more.
they do indeed, and then they also broker deals to give it away for free. And to
which is
drive,
kind of what Microsoft is doing, and Sony does, and everyone does.
yeah, and to drive, it's a loss leader, isn't it? Effectively,
Yeah.
and it just seems to be here that absolute nuts. I mean, Tim Sweeney. I mean, he's got his mouthpiece out because he's still on Twitter. And what was it? His tweet, wasn't it? On the 18th of November, we've been continually astonished by Google's brazen embrace of anti-competitive practices from the secret Fortnite task force they created to attack Epic when we launched outside the Google Play, to the big money deals they made with competitors to dissuade store competition. And Reuters have picked the story up, haven't they, and run with it, and that's what he was off the back of. I just Epic need publicity. They need publicity. They need people to go to the Epic store.
They do.
They
Yep.
need people to spend money. And I don't know if you've recently seen, but they've also got the GOG Galaxy. Was it GOG? Isn't it GOG Games?
Yep.
They are now embedded. Their store is now embedded in the Epic store.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
No, I hadn't seen that.
So it's not embedded. That's wrong. It's been added to so you can buy games through GOG in the Epic Store and then stay in your Epic library.
Mhm.
And don't forget that GOG is part of CG Project. Project who made Cyberpunk
Yeah.
and all those. The Witcher. So is that and again a play for them to drive more money? I
Yeah.
think it is. Do I think Epic here has got some truth in the matter? I don't think they're probably wrong. Is it going to be that is this an attack against Epic? No, it's not. This is Google. Google is a bit like saying Google's like, I'm not, I'm not particularly hate one person. I hate you all. So I'll tell you what I'll do. We'll treat you all the same, isn't it? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's still like the art of war, isn't it? Then, in saying that Sun Tzu, you was it a friend of my, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, isn't it, so to speak? And
That's the one. Yeah.
so what they're doing, they're keeping they're keeping everybody in the same boat, so they know where they're going. So having these partnerships, having these payments out to them, isn't just to target Epic. They don't want Activision launching a game outside the Play Store, do they? They don't want
No.
Nintendo doing that. So it's a tactic to ensure that they drive the business through the Play Store. But Epic clearly again feel that this is a targeted attack on them.
It is. It's the same. As we said, it's the same thing they do with their
It's just
exclusives. Because
yeah.
basically, yeah, if you sign up to an exclusive and here's a load of money, you can't then sell that on any other store because it's an exclusive. It's not much different to that, I'd argue.
But what gets me here, though, is if this isn't false, if this case is completely false, right? Absolutely, completely false. Google could sue Epic, couldn't they? Massively to countersue to say, Now, do Google want to get in? I don't think that'll happen because I don't think Google will want to get into court and have their dirty laundry aired around deals that they've made with other companies, not anti-competitive in the sense of anti-Epic, but any deals they've got. But on the other hand, how the hell have Epic know anything about deals that are going to have NDAs with them?
I don't know. Isn't that something
They're
part
not,
of
are
is
they?
it Discovery or stuff like that? So I don't know.
It just to me is that Tim Sweeney, it just cannot let this go, can he? Cannot.
He's too far in now. He's too far in. He needs a win to claw some money back.
And he's burnt so many bridges, isn't he? He's alienated himself in the industry.
Yeah,
absolutely alienated himself. And given they're going to fight this, then so they're going to take them to court. They're going to take Apple. I mean, this is all in this. This is all part of that same Apple court, isn't it? The appeal. They're going back to court, to fight Apple. It just is like. I mean, what's going to happen? Do they think Apple's going to roll over and be like, "Well, here's $20 billion." Then sorry, we're such a bad people. That's not going to happen.
No, not at all. And even if they do win something, Apple's going to drag that one out paying. Or there'll be another appeal.
Yeah, and we know that these big companies, they don't want to play nice with everybody, do they? They, I mean, and one of the examples I think I read when I was reading the research for this, one that was, and I forgot about this, was Activision themselves when they were with Battle.net, where they pulled everything back, didn't they, onto Battle.net? But now they're back on Steam.
They are, yeah,
yeah, because where else are you going to get to your market? Where is your market? Where are your consumers?
Ubisoft are back on Steam. I'm sure I read that the other day that Ubisoft have put all their stuff back on Steam as well.
Right, and do you remember EA pulled away from Steam, didn't they?
They did. I'm not sure if they're still back on Steam or not.
They are. I think they are. Yeah, they are. Right. So you've got EA also in bed with Microsoft on Game Pass because you've got to go where the consumers are. You've got to go where your market is. But exactly. Epic just seemed to be like an island that, for some reason, they don't want to build a bridge to the mainland because, God forbid, they might get people coming over.
I used to go to the Epic store just to get the freebies to rob them of money, but I don't even bother doing that now. I can't remember the last time I looked at the Epic store.
No, I've given up with it. But what my final point on this though is that Epic are nuts because you can have additional stores on Android.
Yeah.
Because Amazon's there, you can add third-party stores. Microsoft, don't forget, have announced they're going to build a mobile Xbox store.
Yep.
So to me, it's counterintuitive, this whole point of saying that that they shoot it down, because Google could easily point to those arguments, couldn't they, to say, well, actually,
and they will do.
They will do, yeah. But I mean, talking of Activision Blizzard, then, the merger is still rumbling away, isn't it, in the background? Despite our
It,
friends in Brazil and Saudi Arabia giving it the green light.
it is. So obviously we've talked a lot about this, but a few weeks ago we mentioned that obviously one of the key bits is Call of Duty, isn't it? And the whole franchise, and Sony are worried, well, and also worried. They're saying, that Microsoft will pull it, and Microsoft agreed. Look, here's a 3-year deal. We'll sign that now. We're not planning to pull it from PlayStation at all, but we're going to guarantee for at least 3 years. Well, let's say there's a new report out that Microsoft have now upped that to 10 years to try and promise Sony that they're not moving anywhere. Now, Sony have obviously declined to comment on this deal, but I then use that moment to then claim that Microsoft has a history of dominating industries, while also claiming gamers' choices will disappear with this deal. They've obviously not explained any more about that, but they just took that moment to put this out there again.
Well, yeah, and this started off, didn't it, with what's the guy's name? I can't think of his name now. Phil Spencer.
Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, so Phil Spencer basically said that the initial deal, wasn't it, that they said that they would keep Call of Duty
on all current contracts as well, like
but they never
not having it on Game Pass and stuff like that.
You're right, and initially there wasn't a time specified, was there? It was basically just for they would keep for the foreseeable, wouldn't they? And then she say it got to 3 years, and then they said 10 years, and Sony won't do anything. I know it wasn't it. Sorry, wasn't it for the foreseeable life of the next console generation? Was it? I think the next console generation, but obviously there isn't a timeline on that. But but Sony are now saying they're not going to comment on this at all. It's like what is the win here? It's like, Sony, the longer you hold out, the worse you're looking.
Oh, they look terrible, but I don't think they care.
No, of course they don't, because they are absolutely lobbying the regulators to stop this merger going ahead.
They are, and it's just getting
disagree.
petty now.
It is, and I don't disagree that Microsoft come into a marketplace, they dominate it. That's it. That is Microsoft. We know it. We've worked in it. We've lived and breathed it. We know Microsoft dominate an industry if they go into it. But I think in this particular industry, where it's consumers, Microsoft have learned
don't do so well in consumer industries,
and they have learned that they cannot do this like in the corporate industry, or technology space where they dominate and win. They need to ensure people buy into the whole Xbox Game Pass deal, and to burn the bridges and to burn Sony would just be a PR disaster. And
it is.
They're not going to do that. They are not going to do it.
And franchises like Call of Duty and Fortnite and stuff, they make so money, but they thrive the fact that you can play them anywhere. So I can play it on my Xbox. I can go pick it up on my PlayStation in the bedroom or whatever, play that. I can go on my PC and play it and just carry on with the same game. I can do it on mobile, whatever it happens to be. Microsoft aren't stupid. They're not going to cut that one off because it's huge amounts of money for them, even just from PlayStation.
No. Why would you kill possibly one of the biggest revenue streams that they've got? It would be nuts, wouldn't it? Absolutely nuts. And what was one of the other arguments that Sony said? Wasn't it about console prices would rise? I think was one of the other statements.
Oh yeah, that's the other one. Yes, they want to make out that Microsoft will raise the price of Game Pass and consoles. But Microsoft have already said that potentially Game Pass will go up in cost in the future. That's not a secret. But Sony just recently upped the price of PlayStation, while Microsoft chose not to.
It's nuts.
The hypocrisy from Sony is on another level. Basically, they've looked at all sorry, I'm not going to try not to swear there. All the crap things that they do, and are now projecting that onto Microsoft. That because they do it, someone else will do it as well.
I mean, it is. You don't need to be an economist to say that prices will not go up. The whole point of Game Pass, it runs through Microsoft. Microsoft hosts games on their servers. Servers cost money from storage, data transfer, all the other things. Things will go up because everything is going up.
Just from inflation alone, things will go up.
So to state that console prices will rise is a bit like saying the tides come up every day and the sun goes down and the moon comes. It's like, well, yeah, if they will do, but
They
that
will
is
do,
not going
yeah.
to be Microsoft's. That is not going to be a fault of Microsoft because they bought Activision Blizzard. I mean, it's just
No,
nuts.
no.
It's just nuts. But anyway, yeah. So we got. I think we've got some additional stories coming next week to talk about a little bit more on the other side of this. But
Yeah.
yeah, Sony are just they are doing everything they can to try and stop this going ahead. But talking of the CMA though, because obviously the CMA is highly involved in this particular deal, they are still now also scrutinizing the VMware Broadcom merger, acquisition, buyout, whatever you want to call it this week.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I
Yeah.
have a stinking feeling that this is not going to go ahead.
Yeah, well, this isn't a phase one investigation, so they're doing what they call a request for comment.
Yeah.
So basically, they're thinking about doing a phase one. Let's hear everyone's feedback. But this is going to go very nicely with the European Commission's phase one investigation that was announced a few days ago, and also the FTC moving to phase two investigation because they warranted enough of their phase one. So everyone is looking at this deal.
Yeah, as I say, with the EU, basically, I mean, they are all over it, aren't they, as well? I mean, and this is again, $60+ billion deal. It's
Yep.
what's Microsoft $67 billion deal. Given the CMA are if the CMA are highly concerned that this is going to reduce competition, isn't it, in the UK, and and obviously I think the EU certainly are also doing it. But the shareholders they've passed it. The shareholders have said, "Go,
Yep.
let's go with
Shareholders
this."
are happy. Yep.
Of course you are, because you're going to get money if you're a shareholder.
Cha-ching.
And Broadcom shares are worth more, so you'll get a nice, equivalency of Broadcom shares, so potentially big returns. Though it's interesting to see that that Broadcom themselves state that they're confident that it doesn't present any competition issues. And they reckon that they are happy that they can complete this in fiscal year 23. Well, didn't they
Yeah.
originally say that they were going to complete this by October 22?
No, it was October 2023. I went back and checked.
Was
So
it?
they
Are we sure?
they
I
had
thought it was
envisioned
I
that
thought
it
it
was
was
going to take a
October.
while.
I apologize. All right, I thought it was 23. That's why I was puzzled about that.
No, they did say October 2023. So they obviously envisioned that this wasn't going to be quick. It might take a little while.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also had forgotten about that back in 2018. They tried to buy Qualcomm, didn't they?
He did, yeah. But was it even more money?
130 billion, but Trump knocked it on the head.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, but I just think the way this looks, there's going to have to be a real strong argument from Broadcom to how this is not going to cause any impact in the market. And I think the other problem was around. I think when we talked about this a couple of months ago, was around cost increases as well. That was it, wasn't it? Potential license increases.
Yeah, putting license costs up.
The Broadcom had done previously, hadn't they, where they made mergers of Symantec and CA. So that's definitely something that they're going to want to look into.
See, I mean, if it doesn't go through, I think it'll make quite a few of the VMware staff very happy.
I do, but I also, if it doesn't go through, I think that could be the end of VMware. I don't think that's a little too drastic, but I think you'll see massive reorganization across the VMware stack, and I wouldn't be surprised if they spin out some of their product lines.
Yeah, it will be a very different VMware in a couple of years, regardless of which way this goes.
Well, yeah, I mean, Raghu, the CEO, he'll be going anyway, because once the merger's done, he's not going to stay around, is he?
No, not at all.
Because we already know that the CEO of Broadcom is going to personally run the division, isn't he? Initially, so Raghu's going to have no place there, and I think if they don't sell or they don't merge, then he'll go anyway, because again, it's not going to be one to stick around there, but. Yeah, regulatory issues all over the field this month as well. So, slightly different story now then. Let's talk about Elizabeth Holmes.
Her of Theranos fame.
Theranos, yeah, because I think we did talk about Theranos, didn't we? Maybe one of our early podcasts, yeah.
Yeah, we did, and obviously there was a very good TV series based on it from Hulu, wasn't there? Called The
That
Dropout.
was, yes.
I watched, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was eye opening. But yes, obviously she was found guilty, wasn't she? Of or what she found guilty of 3 counts of wire fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud earlier this year. But they finally announced the sentencing, haven't they? So she's going to get 135 months, or just over 11 years in prison.
She's indeed, because was it originally prosecutors asked to 15 years, wasn't it?
They
And
did.
15,
Yeah.
15 years and reparations of $800 million.
Wow. Yeah.
That's good luck with getting that. But yeah, so as you say, she's just been sentenced to, roughly speaking, just over 11 years in prison.
It was.
But she won't.
Yeah.
But she won't be going to prison, will she? Until April next year.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't get my head around that one. You've just been sentenced, but here, have 4 or 5 months to get yourself together before you go to prison.
But she's pregnant, isn't she? So,
oh, is that what it is? Okay,
yeah.
right, yeah.
So she has a young. I think she has a young child,
Yeah.
who was born in between. I think in between the initial court case,
Yeah.
and obviously this happening. She now is pregnant again with her second child, and I believe her defense asked the judge to have clemency, so that she shouldn't go to prison, and her
Right.
partner also asked for that as well. So I might be wrong, but I wonder whether or not they're allowing the time for her to have the child, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. Yep.
But then there was also, I did read something as well, that she could be out within 3 years as well.
Really?
Well, yeah, but good behaviour, because a lot of these, it's white collar crime, isn't it, as opposed to, I don't know what the alternative is statement, but
Yeah,
but,
it wasn't something that directly injured someone, was it, or armed robbery or something like that? Yeah, it was all financial kind of crime.
yeah. So she's
A
got
lot of
11 years.
misleading.
Yeah, I mean, so, and then I think the other part of the sentence, wasn't it? She also would have supervised release once she's outside, like, I guess what you call parole, I suppose, wouldn't it? Once she's out of prison. But if you're wondering who the hell is Elizabeth Holmes and what did she do? Well, let us take you a little back to, well, when was it back? How many years ago now?
Probably
5,
10
6 years ago,
hasn't
maybe.
it? Oh, maybe, yeah.
She created a company called, you're gonna have to say, because I get it wrong every time. Theranos.
Yeah.
That was supposedly had created a blood test that could have 240 different outcomes, wasn't it? So all these tests that we currently do
single
today,
drop of blood to test, to do 240 tests on. Yeah.
Well, it was complete and utter fabrication,
and in
a
matter of minutes from a tiny small machine that you could put in a counter in like a Boots or a Walmart or something like that, wasn't it? So, but yeah, it didn't really work like they said, and there was a lot of fabrication of results, and the fact that you put it in a machine and then they either gave you fake results or it didn't work properly, or they ran off and tested it in a real lab and then brought it back to you. A lot of misleading statements, and yeah, it was just one big mess, and it just kept going on and on and on, didn't it?
It just did, and it the more that it was pulled apart, the more they fought back and said that that scientists had got it wrong, that they didn't understand their tests. And wasn't it her former partner who was, and I say partner from a romantic sense as well as business partner, who was also the CEO, wasn't he? He also was involved in the fraud.
He was,
and he, I think he went to, was he? I can't remember whether he was found guilty. I think he was. He was separate trial, wasn't he? Yeah,
wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, so he'll be sentenced so next month.
That was it. Wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, of wire fraud.
10 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Yeah, so quite a few more.
But basically,
it's both investors and patients.
Yeah, but again, it's just another one of these absolute, complete and utter fallacy. It just did not exist. The test did not work.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all smoke and mirrors, complete and utter. Look at the left hand.
Fabrication, wasn't it?
Yeah, look at the right hand. Bang, bingo. You've now, none of it existed. The tech doesn't exist. It does not exist whatsoever.
Well, it does. It just doesn't work.
Well, I say the tech doesn't exist. That's
So
wrong
there's a
to say
machine
that.
there that you put one drop of blood into and it gives you some results, but those results aren't accurate, even
No,
slightly.
and the technology. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the technology will get there.
Yes.
It will. It will happen. But it isn't there now. We aren't. This isn't Star Trek, is it? Where you can
No.
do that. It's not there yet. But yeah, yeah. So she's off to prison next year, and that's, I guess, what the end of that. But unfortunately, many of the investors have still, haven't. They're at a loss, aren't they? Won't recoup
They
the
are
money
massively.
that
Yeah.
millions and millions of dollars that will never be seen again. But where did it go? That was the piece that I forgot to check. Because where did the money go? Because this isn't
Nice
like,
houses, nice cars.
oh well, there we go,
Yeah.
like every other one, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
All of these are the same outcome, isn't it? It's just textbook. Yeah, ultimately. Well, before we get into the room bill, let's talk about a final couple of stories then for this week. So we talked about She Who Should Not Be Mentioned, sold by the particular bookseller
Yep.
of Space.
I've
What do we call
muted
him?
her.
Space Jeff.
Space Jeff. Yep.
So I'll say the word Alexa.
Yeah.
The original, possibly the best. I don't know.
But definitely the original
assistant.
voice assistant. Yeah.
I mean, I think certainly the one that gives decent enough results when you ask it stuff.
Yeah. I can't complain about the results it gives us. She's a bit hard of hearing sometimes, but I've got a number of kids that make non-stop noise, so she does fairly well considering.
God, given how I feel sometimes, I'm surprised she actually hear anything. But turns out it has been burning a bucket load of money, hasn't it? Absolute bucket loads of money.
It has. So it kind of came to light that the Worldwide Digital Group, which consists of the Alexa division, the hardware division, as well as things like Amazon Prime Video, among many others, lost $3 billion in the first quarter of this year and is on track to lose a whopping $10 billion overall this year.
That's not chump change, is it?
It's not. And apparently the vast majority of those losses are blamed on Alexa.
That's a bit
double
unfair.
The losses, yeah, over double the losses of other divisions. I think it's come down to the fact they sell this at cost, don't they, or even below cost, especially on Black Fridays, and they just haven't really had any good plans to monetize Alexa as a service. I think, I remember the first announcement or whatever. I watched a show and they were saying about how you'd be able to basically buy stuff through it, and you can, but I don't think anyone's actually using that, are they? I mean, I've never bought anything. The feature's turned off. I mean, I've got 4 kids. Could you imagine if they figured out that you could buy stuff from Alexa and it got delivered the next day? My credit card would be destroyed. I'd be in debt because they'd just hammer it. But yeah, so that feature is turned off. But I mean, who wants to buy stuff without voice? I mean, I want to see something, do a bit of research on it. Yeah, I just can't imagine it by voice only.
No, we're not quite there, are we? I don't think. To make it the kind of, when you're buying stuff, even on the internet, like, you like to do your research. I mean, I know Amazon has its luxury, the convenience, doesn't it, so to speak?
It does, yeah.
But I still like to have a look at the product, read the reviews, but generally get an idea of what I'm buying, or check for other competitive products or other places that might sell it. The thought of just going to, and saying buy this, there aren't many products I do that. It would have to be something that I buy regularly enough to trust it.
And I tell you, I haven't used it because I've disabled it, but occasionally it does say, look, you usually buy this from us, like coffee or something like that, and you buy it once a month or once every 2 months. So that time's coming up. Do you want me to reorder it for you? I've always just gone on the app and done it myself because I've disabled the voice system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd probably do it in that point. But obviously, I've got the issue with kids, so maybe not.
The problem I see with that is, what they're countering on there is impulse buy, isn't it? Oh, you see something, you ask to buy it. You're watching the TV.
But I could just set up a schedule. Amazon allows you to set up a schedule for that to just send me a pack every month or 2 months.
I do that. We do that. So we have a couple of things that are on subscription that I get. So I think it is there, but I think what they're trying to get is you watch something on the TV and then you go insert name, buy this, isn't it?
Exactly. I just wouldn't do that. And obviously, clearly, a lot of people haven't been doing that because pretty much no one's doing it, and they haven't found any other ways to monetize this.
No, like you say, the hardware division. Given the fact that I think we talked about the other week. I was offered an Amazon Echo Dot for less than a tenner.
Well, they're losing money on that, and even if they weren't losing money, there's all the back end costs, isn't it? Because they don't lose money on the hardware, but yeah, there's the services and all the processing and the back end to run these, and there are a lot of these out there.
There are, and you're right. As we talked a bit about a minute ago with the Sony piece and Game Pass. Alexa runs on a machine learning platform, so there's lots of servers there that are processing the data. There's the power cost, there's all that kind of information. But you're right, monetizing it there also means then that they need to access that data. And then I suppose the other trap you fall into with voice assistants is privacy, isn't it? So how can they access that data without violating privacy and potential data leaks, isn't it? And the future would be brilliant. I have to say, the whole piece here with digital assistants, with all of them that shouldn't be mentioned, apart from Cortana, because nobody uses that, is we want to live in a Star Trek world, don't we?
Yep.
Where
I want a replicator.
I want a replicator. But you basically want to live in a Star Trek world where you talk to the computer in natural language and it does exactly what you want. The problem is today, there is natural language, but you either don't get the response you want or it can't find it.
Well, no, exactly. It doesn't quite work. So if I was to ask, we use it a lot to set timers for meals, especially when we're doing
basically all I do with ours,
timers. But I can't say, set me a 10-minute timer for this and a 5-minute timer for that. It doesn't quite work like that.
You can do that, but you have to be very specific. Set time, then set another alarm or something, don't you?
It doesn't come naturally,
No, you're right. Whereas you're right. You're like saying, right, I'm set me a timer for the cake. I'm putting it in now, 10 minutes. Remind me in 5 minutes that I need to put the carrots in and set a timer for 50. Exactly the kind of thing you would do as a human. You cannot get them to do yet. And I think when we get to that stage of pure natural language where it will respond, that's when things will change. And I don't think we're far away. I think we're a lot closer than we've been in the last couple of years at least. But it's not there, and I think that's the problem. A lot of these companies, Amazon in particular, I think would like to tell you that we are there, but we're not.
No,
we're not at all. So no, definitely not a shock that he's money, but I think it's definitely an eye opener to what Amazon are going to do here. And given the hiring issues, the layoffs, the fact that that where it's gone. The fact that Jeff Bezos isn't running the company day to day as well, is that going to be something that he's got? Will Andy Jassy maybe say that this isn't a priority anymore? Who knows? But very shocking to see how much money it's lost, given how successful it appears to be.
Money.
Yeah, given how successful the whole Echo environment appears to be commercially. Yeah. It's a bit of a smoke and mirrors, I suppose, there, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't use it to buy anything. They're not monetizing me. I'm using it to turn lights on and off. And,
that's what I mean.
Check the weather, set some timers. It's basically it's an input for my home automation system. That's the reason I bought it for.
There you go. That's the problem. Yeah, you're not using the Amazon ecosystem to do that.
No, and to be honest, if I could build my own voice assistant that was hosted locally, I'd do that. But actually, that's not for everyone. That's just kind of me. Not everyone can do that.
Yeah. Right. Well, let's talk about something completely different then, as they like to sound like Python. So, the X-37B landed back to Earth, or landed back on Earth on the November the 12th at 5:20 in the morning Eastern Standard Time in the US. Now, if you're thinking, what the hell is an X-37B? Well, that is I say mini. It's a mini-looking shuttle operated by the US Space Force. No, I didn't make that up. Of course, there is the US Space Force.
Yeah.
And it is highly, highly secretive, isn't it? To say the least.
It is. I mean, we know what it looks like because obviously it's landed and they've shown photos. But it's been running since 2010. It's had 6 successful missions. I say this last one was 908 days in orbit, so just under 2.5 years. They did release some information about some of what this was doing. Clearly, it wasn't doing this for 2.5 years, but they did say it launched, was it FalconSat 8, which is a
Yep.
US Air Force Academy satellite, and it carried 5 experimental payloads. One was a space laser. No, sorry, that's not. It was a photovoltaic radio frequency antenna module. If you're asking what that is, because I had to figure that one out, it's designed to convert solar rays into microwave energy and transmit power to the ground. Sounds like a space microwave or laser. It sounds like a weapon to me, but apparently it's not.
So that FalconSat, as you say, I think it's a microsatellite, isn't it? I think that's got several experiments on it as well, testing different things. So these X-37Bs, they are launched on the top of Atlas rockets. So because they fit inside there. There's a couple of them as well, isn't there? I don't think it's just one shuttle. I think there's two.
There's several, isn't there? Yeah,
several.
Two.
I think
is it two?
Is it two? Or I can't remember whether.
Two.
Yeah, I think. But they're not huge piece of kit, but they are very, very clever piece of kit. And as you say, we don't know what actually they do up there. Now,
there's no people in this either, is there? These are autonomous.
Completely autonomous. Yeah, the previous mission was up in space for 780 days. It does make you wonder what it is doing, because you'd think, it'd fly up there, it would
deploy satellites and then come land.
Maybe it'd run its experiments, but for it to come back, 2 years later, land, it's like, what is that doing? There's got to be stuff on there, hasn't there? So I mean, look,
they did say, look, there were 2 other experiments which weren't part of FalconSat 8. One was from NASA that tested space exposure on seeds to help, and their quote is, inform space crop production for future interplanetary missions and establishment of permanently inhabited bases in space. Okay, so checking how crops grow. And there was another one tested the effect of space radiation on various materials, which NASA will then compare to materials here on Earth. But yeah, it wasn't doing that for 2.5 years. You're right. It was doing lots of other stuff they're not going to tell us about.
No, there was a bit of controversy with the last mission. So the one in 2019, apparently the Air Force, it wasn't the Space Force then, it was the Air Force, announced that it had launched small satellites when it was up in space. Remember, it launched in 2017 and it came back in 2019. And they said that it launched these small satellites. No further information was given. But then several scientists in the space community pointed out at the time that the US had not reported those deployments to the UN space registration, and none of them had been catalogued either by the Air Force for public purposes.
So
and apparently, apparently that it was the first time that either America or Russia, for that point, had flouted that convention. Because there should be, any time you launch anything to space, it should be catalogued by the UN, so that to avoid, I guess, incidents. So these aircraft, spacecraft, excuse me, are highly secretive, and I think these little missions that they go up there is purely just to keep people asking too many questions, isn't
it? Bit of cover there, isn't it?
It is a bit of cover, isn't it? But I think they're amazing. They look like I say, a micro shuttle. They've got 2 tail planes or vertical stabilizers at a kind of an angle on both sides, so it's not like a traditional plane. Very short, stubby wings, haven't they? They come down, and like a payload. They have like a shuttle style payload doors that open up. But I would love. I mean, we're never going to know. Well, we might do in like 50 years' time. But
Freedom of Information Act,
I would love to know what these are doing. I bet you there's some hidden space station that's been built up there that we don't know about.
It's dark side of the moon.
Dark side of the moon, indeed. Well, we'll soon find out what is on the dark side of the moon, because Orion is up there, isn't it, at the moment? Taking lots of pictures with the 4K cameras are there. So we'll be covering that in a future episode when we get some more of the information that's come out for that. But the early pictures so far do look very good, don't they?
They do indeed.
So, to finish off today, then, we've got 2 rumours in the Tech Wrap rumour mill have been churned out from the rumour mill, I should say. And they're both iPhone 15 ones. I mean, we're getting earlier, but
they are. I mean, the first one's come from Quo.
Michin Quo. Yes,
indeed it is. So he's saying he's now confirmed all new iPhone 15s will be getting USB-C ports. Hurrah.
Shock.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? it seems while the Pro models will be able to fully use these ports for faster transfer speeds, if you can't afford a non-Pro, you're going to be getting USB 2 transfer speeds, just like Lightning. So that's the same USB that came out in the year 2000. And only does, 480 megabits a second.
Okay.
Really? Really? Why?
Why cripple it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still surprised that Lightning only does USB 2 and not USB 3. I mean, that came out, it's got to be in what, 2005, 2006? I don't know. When did USB 3 come out?
Good question. I can't remember actually now you said that.
2008. 2008. So, yeah. So it's currently running 22-year-old technology for the transfer. But yeah, they never chose to upgrade that to USB 3 for some reason. And they're not going to be upgrading you to USB 4 or Thunderbolt unless you buy a Pro phone.
Okay, we're fine then.
We're fine. It's not everyone else.
Well, the only thing I don't get with this is, though, do you ever transfer data with a lightning cable?
No.
Come on, look, I got to say it.
No, I mean, I used to a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
But now, no. I mean, it would be good. If you were taking these 48 megapixel shots in RAW.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to drag off, and using AirPlay or Wi-Fi isn't going to be the quickest. It would be nice to have that backup, of plugging it in and transferring at 10 gigabits a second. But no, I don't really use it.
No, I'm just, I think it's kind of a, on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. Why would you not make sure it has the faster transfer speed? But on the other hand, I'm like, who's transferring data on this? Charge it,
This has got to be an artificial limitation at this point.
It's got to be.
Because Apple are not building USB 2 ports, are they? USB 2 chips. Those, they haven't been for a very long time. This has got to be USB 3 chips, or even, and they're artificially limiting the speed.
But again, I suppose it would be very interesting to understand who is actually using it to transfer data. I know I'm playing devil's advocate, but I don't. I'm not seeing a huge requirement, and I could be very wrong here. But I'm just like, I don't get it.
No. And the only time I probably would maybe is if I was using the iPad for video editing and I want to transfer stuff on and off.
Maybe, yeah.
But if there's already USB-C there.
Yeah. So again, it's a moot point, isn't it? So
yeah,
I'm not saying Quo's
edit
wrong.
Video on my iPhone 14 Pro. Probably very well I can edit video, but I don't want to do it on a screen that small.
No, I'm not saying Quo's wrong. It's just puzzling that they would, as you say, why would you hobble it? I don't. I don't see the gain for Apple here, apart from just rubbing the nose of the EU.
Yeah, it's an artificial. There is that. I mean, yeah, it's got a USB-C shape port, but it's still USB 2 transfer speed. We win.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously, you could argue this is for segmentation of product lines, but as you mentioned, who's using it and who's using it enough to go, I was going to buy a 15, but I really want the faster speed, so I'll get the 15 Pro. No one's doing that.
No. It's very...
Because if you know enough about that, you're buying the Pro anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, you'd
be wanting the better cameras and the other bits and pieces if you're that worried about it.
I know. That's the bit that I say just puzzles me, because I don't... I'm not seeing the logic in it, apart from, you say, an artificial piece to slow down. But I'm sure Apple, if it's true, have got a reasoning behind it. But so what's the other one then? The other rumor in the rumor mill this week then?
Well, this is an interesting one. I think I can get behind this. The Shrimp, Mr. Shrimp Apple Pro, he's back, and he's obviously been quite reliable. Yes, he's been quite reliable with his announcements. But anyway, he's apparently received early information. And he's not confirming this will happen, but the early rumors he's getting from his contacts is that, one, the iPhone 15, I'm going to presume Pro and not the normal one, is going to be made of titanium around the sides. So rather than having, two glass plates with aluminium sides, they're going to be made of titanium, a nice premium material. But more interesting, He's saying the back is now going to be rounded. So obviously, if you look at a modern iPhone, it's very industrial design. There's very square edges, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Some would say quite painful if you're holding your phone too sharp at the wrong angle. But he's saying the back will now be rounded off, like an iPhone 5C, or the bottoms of the new Macs. So if you look at the new Macs,
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
got
I'm looking at mine. Yeah, I
the
can see
top
the way.
part
Yeah.
where the keyboard meets, it's got quite sharp corners. But if you look at the other side, it tapers off, doesn't it? It becomes nice, round, and smooth. So he's saying, yeah, the phones will be like that.
No, yeah. I mean, it would be nice, wouldn't it?
I can get
I
behind
mean,
that. It would make it
I
more comfortable to hold in the hand.
yeah, and I think it'd also be a nice change again, but from the last couple of
But
lineups,
without
the last
changing too much. You'd still get the
yeah.
overall, it's an iPhone design, but there's some slight changes.
So I mean, the 12, 13, and 14 have had similar
Yeah,
design ethos, haven't they?
they have, yeah.
So do that. So it would be good to see a change there. The 15 again is rumored to be a major upgrade year, isn't it? So
Yeah.
the other thing I'd say though with that is if the now we've got kind of the infinity edge of the screen, this wasn't it? It bleeds to the edge of the almost.
Yeah.
That would be good to see too. So yeah, I mean it would work well. It would be in the design material design that they've got, that across the ranges. I can see how they get behind it. Colors would be good, I think, as well. They need to do more with the colors. I think
For
the
the
iPhone
pros,
5C.
definitely. I'd like some more vibrance. They're always quite muted. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
like is it deep purple they call it on the 14 Pro? I really do like the color. But I would like just the option to have one with a bit more pop to it.
Oh, I'm sorry for that background noise there. A large Chinook has just flown over, I think, almost at treetop level.
Because we were talking about the X37B, wasn't it? So
yeah,
come to get you, Jay.
The door will be kicked in a minute.
I'm a bit further from airbase, so he'll be here in a while.
I think, I think I could get behind that. I mean, the 5C, because that's kind of where similar design, as you say. They had great colors. They had the green. They had similar to very similar to the latest iPad lineup, isn't it?
Yes.
My wife, she had a 5C in blue. She loved that phone, and I could get behind a change in the colors. I think you're right. We need to there needs to be more vibrant. It needs to be something that you'd be like, yeah, that looks great. That's different,
Or even just give me the is it product red, but for a Pro.
Oh, do you know what? I would buy that in a heartbeat.
I've always wanted one of ones in those bright reds, but
yeah,
just I want the Pro model.
I've got the product red watch, and it looks great. I would love a phone in that. You're right, as in a Pro, as you say, a Pro phone. It would be absolutely stunning, I think. But I'm surprised. Do you know what? I am surprised they don't do it. Really surprised.
Yeah.
But there you go. Well, that's probably a good place for us to wrap up today's show. We will be back next week for episode 114, and we already have a full packed lineup. I mean, the notes for next week's show are long already. We're going to talk. I can already tell you, we're going to talk Twitter. We're going to talk FTX because we pushed that back a week. We've got news of the latest astronauts from the European Space Agency. We've got Intel. We've got Mercedes. We've got Brazilians. We've got Sony. And the Tech Rat Rumor Mill is back as well next week. So you can find us on Twitter still. Yeah, we're still there at Weekly Tech Rant. All of our show notes are online at techrant.online. And yeah, we'll be back next week. I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good day, all.